Good morning, Amazing Authors is coming at you momentarily. I'm waiting for my guest, Faith Wilcox. She wrote the wonderful book, Hope is a Bright Star. She'll be coming on momentarily. I'm so excited to share her story, especially in this month of pediatric cancer awareness. Today, welcome to Amazing Authors. We are in an empty room, a story waiting to happen, and you are the author. And in this particular instance, Faith is the author, and I'm so excited to have her join us today. This is the room where Amazing Author's story comes to life. The storyteller becomes the story, which is something that always fascinates me because there is so much on the page and there's so much that goes beyond the page. So I would so excited to have you tell us all about what has happened since you actually published your beautiful book, Hope is a Bright Star. Here it is, everyone. This is a memoir, a mother's memoir of love, loss, and learning to live again, which I think is really, really important because it's not over when we lose someone. It's what we decide to do with the legacy that was theirs and their impact on our lives. And when you read this book, she takes you there. She takes you into the entire journey. Oh my gosh, your whole heart and soul will break. But at the same time, there is hope at the end. So let me tell you a little. I'm sorry, Faith, how are you today?
Thank you.
I'm a million miles a minute. You know, I'm always revved up beforehand. And I had a particularly wonderful experience listening to your book on audio. It is available in audio for those of you who do love to listen to books. And I think that listening to this story brought it home even that much more because it is your words and they come to life. And I will say this, I do love reading books that bring it to life by the words only, but this particular instance, it was really important for me to listen. And wow, what a story you told. And I want to tell everyone a little bit about you. It's time to celebrate you for sure. You believe that self-expression through writing leads to healing, which is something that I'm very passionate about as well. And Kendra, yes, she's here too, saying such a beautiful book. She listened on audio too. I'm so happy that you're here, Kendra. She's also someone who's incredibly passionate about healing through the written word. Your writing is reflective of a growing body of medical research about narrative identity, which illuminates that how we make sense of what happens to us and the meaning we give to it, experiences beyond our control, directly impact our physical and psychological outcomes. Faith learned these truths firsthand when her 13-year-old daughter, Elizabeth, was diagnosed with a rare bone cancer that took her life. Faith's journey from grief and despair to moments of comfort and peace taught her life-affirming lessons, which she shares today through her writing, which I'm so happy to have her here sharing with us. She's the author, as I said, of Hope is a Bright Star, a mother's memoir of love, loss, and learning to live again. It was published in June 2021. So we have a full year and a bit under our belt, so we get to hear about what has happened since then. You're also the author of Facing Into the Wind, a mother's healing after the death of her child. It's a book of poetry. She's a longtime resident of Massachusetts, love Massachusetts. She leads a journal writing program at Mass General Hospital for children, for patients, and their families, designed to give participants the opportunity to express themselves, alleviate stress, celebrate victories, and honor their grief. And with that, I'm so excited to share with all of you that she was nominated to receive a nationally recognized award by the Institute for Patient and Family Centered Care in Washington, D.C. for the Journals of Hope program, which I hope you'll tell us a little bit more about. That was initiated by Mass General for Children, too. So happy to share this moment with you. Thank you for being on Amazing Authors. How you doing today, Faith?
I'm doing well, and I'm thrilled to be here.
One of the questions I had was, a lot of people recognize months, awareness months, Pediatric Cancer Awareness Month. I don't like Breast Cancer Awareness Month in October. I hate being reminded of what took the life of my mom. You're changing it on its head and you're using it as an opportunity to help others. Tell us a little bit about how you feel about it, because maybe you have the similar experience as I do, and then what you've done with it to change other people's lives.
Right. Well, I think there isn't a great or large awareness of pediatric cancers. And I think it's really important that people know of them, because some of them are, if you know the signs, some of the signs of when a cancer perhaps starts growing, that early intervention like breast cancer or any other cancer can really, really help. And I also think it's important to know that there are so many families, hundreds of thousands of families, suffering after the death of a child. And I think it's good to be aware that these families need your support. And however you can support them, whether it's even years later, just bringing up their child's name, deeply listening to them, spending some time with them, asking them to go for a walk in the woods with you or go to the ocean for the day. Just keep them in mind, because sometimes families feel alone and feel a little bit lost after a child has died. And people understandably get going with their world and their lives and their busy lives, but it can make a family who has lost a child feel quite alone.
You know, I think that's really important to remember, that even after the passing, you know, these people are like still healing and trying to shift that into something that is life giving rather than destruction, you know, because you live with it. I mean, I can't imagine what is worse than losing a child in your life, because that's a part of you. You know, one of the things I wanted to ask you is, why did you write the book in the first place?
Well, I started by writing in a journal when my daughter was ill, and I found that I had so many emotions that were kept inside of me, and that writing helped me to express my hopes and my dreams as well as my worst fears. And often you keep things inside when you're in a very, very stressful situation. And writing is one way. I highly recommend journal writing for people who are under stressful circumstances. And then over time, I just wanted to give voice to what the experiences that I had. I wanted to share Elizabeth's life and her courage and her grace. And I also wanted people to see up close that even though life can be very rugged after the death of a child, there are ways that you can find moments of comfort and peace. And there are people who will support you out there, and your life will be very different in the long run, but it can be good again too.
I think that's important to remind people that if you're in the moment, it's not necessarily something that you want to hear. Like, it's going to be okay, you know, you're going to get past this. But I think what you're saying is, you know, figure out ways for you to be present in the moment. You journaled for sure, you know, taking notes as to what was going on when Elizabeth got sick, first of all. And then, you know, the impact, because it did impact a lot of your life. I mean, for sure, the book goes through it so beautifully, you know, as to, you're very vulnerable, you're very open, which I think is a beautiful thing, because it frees other people to be as well. Mm-hmm. And you so well in the book. How, when you published in 2021, June of 2021, how did you feel? Like, what was, I know that since you put your heart on the page, it's a little, you know, fiction, you can hide behind it, right? Okay, I'm going to hide behind it. Asking you if it's about me, but it's not, I can just say no. But this is memoir, and memoir takes the author to another level of that, you know, bare, open, you know. Tell us a little bit about that, if you would.
Sure. First, I felt tremendously proud that it was actually accomplished. It's something that I had thought about for years. And I think probably like you, when you saw your first book cover, it just made it come close to reality. And then when you saw your advanced reader copy, it's another exciting moment. And to see it published and to walk into a library or to walk into a bookstore has a tremendous feeling of accomplishment. I do also totally am aware that my book makes me fairly vulnerable, and I am aware that I do put my heart on my sleeve and I put it on the paper. Yeah. So if there are times I say, is it difficult for people to know my life up this close up? But I think part of being vulnerable is also a way that I can help others to know that you can be vulnerable. You can share with people who care about you. You can share what's going on in your life. And you can hold the possibility that through being vulnerable, you can work through a lot of your pain and you can work through to another side.
I think that is something so important because, you know, and I love using this. My friend Ted had taught me a long time. You won't die from terminal uniqueness. Someone's walked this path before, so that when you're sharing your story and if it happens synchronistically to cross someone else's path, then it could be something that is kind of a lifeline to someone else, you know, in the fact that you decided to step out of your comfort zone, put it out there. Plus your daughter's legacy lives on. There's you talk about Elizabeth and she's still with you. She's still with you. And one of the things I wanted to ask you is like for, you know, I love looking back over the year and a half, whatever it is that you've been you publish your book, you're advocating for your book. What has been one of the most profound experiences that you have, and this is a next step, that you felt your daughter's presence there with you, if you at all?
Well, I have felt my daughter's presence sometimes when I am approaching a group and I'm sharing what went on in my life, and I could sort of hear her saying, "Come on, Mom, you can do it," because sometimes it's hard to be front and center. I've done a lot via Zoom, but I've also done a few in-person events. And also when I go to organizations that help the bereaved, I like hospice care centers. I have often brought books to them, and they have given them to people who they are looking after the bereaved, who they are thoughtfully caring for. And that has made me proud because I think it's something Elizabeth really, really would have wanted me to do.
I have to say that, you know, when I was writing my book, my memoir, I was like, I am not going to put this out into the world until it has, in my estimation, a happy ending. You have a significant situation with your daughter, but it has a happy ending.
Yes.
Of what you're doing now. So tell me a little bit about the journal. It's called the Journal of Hope, right? I'm sorry, Journals of Hope program.
Yes. This is a way that I wanted to give back to Mass General Hospital for Children. They gave so much to my child. They cared for her so well. And even though she did die, they gave her just top care and innovative care. And it is also a way to keep Elizabeth's legacy alive. And so I found journal writing so very, very beneficial. And I went to the Family Advisory Council for Mass General Hospital for Children. I proposed this idea of how journal writing could be very beneficial. And I also shared with them some research, because extensive research has been done on this, and neonatal intensive care units and pediatric intensive care units and on the wards of hospitals. And once I saw the research that, in fact, this really is writing of your hopes and dreams and your anxieties and your stress is very beneficial, they said they would like to begin this program. So initially I went on to the wards, which means floors of the inpatient floors, and spoke with parents and spoke with older patients. And I had an overwhelmingly positive response. And I brought in journals as gifts to them. And now it's in the PICU, it's in the NICU, it's in radiation oncology, and it's going to be going to more outpatient clinics as well.
Beautiful. And, you know, I heard it this morning. There's a 20-20-20 for entrepreneurs and business people. They say 20 minutes of movement in the morning, 20 minutes of reflection, like on something powerful, and then 20 minutes of journaling your visions. And what you're saying right now speaks, and that's a healing for your whole body. Yes. That's everyone does it, but specifically for people who are going through a challenge. Like I just think that what you're doing right now for, you know, these kids and also their families too, because I think you can't help but have the impact flow from there. That ripple effect on one person goes out, and God only knows where it ends up. But that's because you decided to do this. So how did you feel? Like, what made you feel compelled to start something like this?
I just felt it inside. I just felt it was the right thing to do. It was the right thing to give forward. I can't go back 20 years, but I can try to help families now.
Yeah. That's beautiful. My friend Michelle's on right now, and she says like the one little mosquito in your ear. It's little, but it makes a lot of noise. So one little thing that you do might be very little in the grand scheme. It could go beyond your imagination. And I find what you're doing right now. Let me read a bit so everyone knows what Hope is a Bright Star is about, so they have a better idea. It's the story of a mother's journey from shock and fear at her young daughter's cancer diagnosis to anguish and despair at her death just a year later, and finally to peace and acceptance of her new life. When 13-year-old Elizabeth diagnosed with a rare bone cancer, Faith is in awe of her courageous child who faces her plight straight on and inspires all who meet her. Despite an army of medical professionals who provide innovative care for Elizabeth, she dies, and Faith and her surviving daughter Olivia are thrown into a maelstrom of grief. They find unexpected comfort in the arms of their family, friends, and community, but Faith faces another shock when she has her own cancer diagnosis while navigating the uncharted water of a life she never expected. In time, Faith discovers moments and moments and places of comfort and peace, and she slowly changes from a mother in despair to a woman with hope for the future. At turns, heartbreaking and heartwarming, Hope is a Bright Star reveals how abiding love can heal a family. And I want to turn toward that. Not only did you have to deal with your daughter, and she was a swimmer, she was very active, she was very, it was a surprise to all of you. And I'm not going to give anything away. I'll let people read it because you really do need to. This is the beautiful cover too about this beautiful book. Hope is a Bright Star. It's won many awards. It definitely is. If you have a friend out there who's going through something like this, that's something I encourage you to share this book with them, because it is a beacon of light, perhaps in the darkness of despair. So going back to you, not only are you dealing with your daughter, but you're also dealing with your own circumstances and your own healing journey after loss of your daughter. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, well, it was sort of twofold. Of course, I had the loss of my daughter to cope with, which for many, many years was extraordinarily difficult. And as I say, little by little, with the support of my community, family, and friends, and a counselor, I did find moments and places of comfort and peace, and it did help me enormously on that path. I was also diagnosed with renal cancer just about 10 years ago now, and that was an enormous shock. I was diagnosed early, which was great. I just had to have a surgery and then recover and cross my fingers, and I still cross my fingers. I'm well, but it had I think a double reverberation with me, because I know how serious cancer is, and I know that its impact on not only yourself but on your family is very, very difficult as well.
I wanted to ask you this because it's something that I have come to terms with. The body has illness, and illness is a significant tell of something that you're not paying attention to in yourself. And I know that maybe as a journaler yourself, when there's disease like this, you're off your central compass and your body and your life, it comes out because your body's going to say, wake up, lady, you got to pay attention to me. This is your one life you're walking. Wake up, wake up, wake up. And for me, I have tinnitus. I deal with it, and it's kind of like a tea kettle that goes off when I'm not paying attention, literally when I'm not taking care of myself, which I'm not saying that, I'm bad mouthing or I'm punishing myself, but it's something I'm more aware of. And I think that the question I wanted to ask you is, how have you felt like your awareness of your life, your purpose, your vision has come more to light since writing your story and then also sharing it with others?
I think that is very true, that what's important in your life really comes into focus quickly. And often if there's something that might show up that's a difficulty, I say on myself, is this on the big scale or the small scale? And
I love that.
The vast majority of the time things are on the small scale, and I say to drop it or just deal with it and go on. So when people sometimes complain about small things, a car not working or not making a meeting that they really wanted to go to, I sometimes sort of draw back a little bit. I don't say anything, but I wanted to say, I wish you knew what's so important in life. And those are disappointments, but just get over them and keep living your life and stay focused on what's most important with family and friends and your community. And I feel that when you volunteer somewhere, you get back so much more than you give. And when I see the smiles on children who I know who are suffering, and their parents I know who are suffering, who feel like maybe a little bit of light is coming to the room when they have the possibility of writing in a journal.
Yeah.
I think volunteering becomes very, very important after you've been through something difficult.
It's kind of like a push, like of service, your service to, and I know I said this the other day, some people, when they figure out what they're here to do to serve others in that capacity, what your talents and strengths and your gifts are, then it's almost imperative that you do that. It's like a push that you feel kind of compelled that that's the gift of life. That's what you get to do. That's why you're here. So what have you found in the last, since, well, how old would Elizabeth be right now?
She would be 35.
Wow. So and she passed away at 13, correct?
14, yes.
So you've had a lot of life happen since losing her, but as your life goes on, and let me tell you from what you've shared in your book too, a lot of your people who are in your life fall away and a lot show up. So there's all those magic and miracles that come from, the loss and the healing in that process. And I know one of the gifts I think that, I felt after, certainly reading your book was the stamina that you have to keep going on. And I think there's small things, big things makes a lot of sense, but even publishing a book, putting it out there, there's a stamina, that perseverance with the message that you want to tell. How do you keep moving on, despite the highs and the lows? For anyone out there who is thinking about writing their story and sharing their memoir.
Well, anyone who's thinking about writing, I would highly encourage to write. It can be a very, very rewarding process. It's also challenging. And I found that I had to do many, many revisions, as you probably did too.
Yes.
But in that process, you think deeply about the subject that you're writing about, and it can help you in some way start to make sense of what happened. It's not that you can correct what happened in the past, but you can say, okay, something really rugged happened, but something else beautiful happened too. For example, Elizabeth was very much suffering in the winter after she had been in treatments for about 3 or 4 months. And Mass General looked into where any innovative treatments were taking place. And there was one in the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota, but she was way too weak to go to Minnesota. So they got, for the first time, approval to bring that treatment to Elizabeth in Mass General. And it was the first time that had ever been done. So something really tragic also became something really amazing, that she was able to give this innovative treatment, which did help her.
Wow. I do like how you're speaking to people that come and the others that are also helped because of your daughter, which is really the legacy of Elizabeth, that her story goes on because you are continuing to be a voice. And, I have my sister's always saying that the challenges in her life certainly impacted her voice, and the necessity to speak your truth, use your voice for the higher good, which is what you're doing right now. So tell us a little bit about how, you felt before and then after with your voice.
Well, it was really interesting. In the worst of times, my inner voice felt like a whisper that I could even barely hear. And being able to write it down helped one way. And then being able to, in safe settings, just verbally to begin with, to be able to share my story. And then as I was writing it, I would sometimes share chapters with friends. again, I had to be in a very sort of safe environment to start this.
Yeah.
And that worked out well for me. And then I did take that big step to have it published and to share it with the world. And I think only good has come of it. I really feel that I know from the letters that I've received from people who have read my book, that I am starting, maybe ever so in such a small way, but like I am starting to make an impact on people's lives.
I can't imagine how you can't, because after having read the book, just, you know, there's this thing we all say, you know, walk in the shoes of another, you know, before you judge, you know, walk in their shoes. And when you write a memoir and share the story, you know, you have a different perspective, and certainly a bird's eye view into what goes on when you're faced with this. Now, I do believe that this story is going to help many people, and I'm sure it has. One of the things I love to find out from you is, what is it that you want to be remembered for, having written it? Like, what is the thing when we think of Faith? I mean, I love your name, by the way, because it's such a beautiful, it's such a beautiful name. I had to put out George Michael's song this morning because I was just like, oh, I love it. There's something beautiful about that, but also, you know, about how we will think of you being the storyteller.
Mm. It's interesting. I haven't thought about this question, but I think one thing that I would always want to be remembered for was being Elizabeth's mother, was being by her side and doing my very best to carry her through this difficult time. And also being a woman who suffered greatly, but who was able to travel down that very difficult cobbled path, but to be able to come to another side of my life and to be someone who was appreciative of life, grateful for life, and try to live life to the fullest.
Beautiful. I certainly see you that way. I definitely see strength here. I love that you're being nominated for this beautiful award for the work that you're doing with the Journal of Hope's program. Certainly you'll find at the end of the month, so hopefully you'll let us all know. We can celebrate you. Either way, you've been nominated. They're recognizing you. They see you and they see what you're doing, and I think that your beautiful daughter's name will continue in many different ways because of the work that you and your daughter Olivia is doing, because it does impact the siblings as well. And the fact that, you know, Olivia is watching you go through with what you're going, you're impacting your daughter, that, you know, in her life as well. So I want to commend you and congratulate you on this beautiful book. Once again, it's Hope is a Bright Star, Mother's Memoir of Love and Loss, Learning to Live Again. And this is not your first book. You wrote poetry before, correct?
I did. I wrote Facing into the Wind, A Mother's Healing After the Death of Her Child. I found that drawing metaphors with the natural world was a way that I could express both hope and grief and beauty in the world. Yeah. And my book is full of metaphor. If you're someone who enjoys nature and who wants to explore a little bit deeper, the themes of hope, the themes of struggling, the themes of finding peace, I think Facing into the Wind would be a book that would definitely be appealing.
You know, and it's also kind of a love song, a love story that you're writing toward.
It is a love story to Elizabeth. That's very true.
And I, like you said at the outset, you know, it is a story about love and what happens when we're vulnerable to love, and the exploration and the highs and lows of life, you know, where we stand by each other. And, you know, at the end of the day, no regrets. So what you did for her and what she did for you, what she does for you and your family right now still, is a beautiful love story. And I just want to commend you once again for that. I want to thank everyone for joining us today for episode 20. I want to ask you, Faith, is there anything else you want to add to this beautiful conversation this morning?
I don't think so, but I think I'd just like to leave. And again, I'm saying I'm repeating this, but for people who have been through great, great difficulties, never give up hope. Just keep on trying. And someday, some way, your life will get better again.
And one more question, where can they find this book for sure?
My book's available on Amazon. It's also available if you ask at any independent bookstore in your area. It's also available on Audible and other ways that you could get my audiobook.
And I did love the Audible. I thought it was very well done, and it brought you into the story. I sometimes had to pause it because it was intense. I was like, oh, I got to stop. I got to stop and have a break. But that's the nature of the story. It is a beautiful, vulnerable memoir. And certainly I encourage you, if you like listening to books on tape or audibles, go grab a copy and share it, certainly with your friends who may be going through something like this. Unfortunately, those are the things that we, being alive, we face. However, at the same time, we're grateful for those people in the world who are willing to share their story and end with hope, which is a bright star, I do love that. So thank you so much, Faith, for joining us here today. I am grateful. Episode 21 is just one of those, I have to say, when I read your book, I wanted to talk to you because I think many ways, because my story is very similar, not the same, because I didn't, I lost a mother, the natural progression of life, the other way around, this is very different, but I feel like your voice needs to be heard. And I think that if I could help you in any way, I wanted to. So thank you so much for joining me today. Great writing does, in fact, stir our emotions. It makes us feel. This book certainly did that. Those authors that are vulnerable to the extent that they truly change the world. And I admire Faith for doing this. And we keep making a difference with our words and get everyone to think. And I want to thank you, Faith. Thank you all for joining us here this morning. And God bless everybody. Have a good one.